the committee if he wanted to. Doesn't seem like he's going to do that. We'll see. But as confusing and kind of bizarre as all of that was, things got even worse when Senator Mullin was asked about a key part of the department he'd be overseeing in his new job.
What is the primary mission of Homeland Security investigations?
From the IG or from us?
I'm sorry, from Homeland Security Department. There's HSI is within Homeland Security. What is their primary mission?
Well,
it's not a trick question either.
No, I understand that. And every agency, sir, we have specific missions that we are targeted to look at our aspect of protecting the homeland. And different directions have different paths. And in different agencies, region-wide, there are 22 of them there. We all need to be in the same boat, row in the same direction, working for one common goal. And as I said, that's protect the homeland, bring peace of mind, and secure the confidence of the American people.
There were a lot of boat analogies there, but Senator Mullin, that doesn't word salad, that whatever that was, didn't even come close to describing HSI's primary mission. And the mission of that agency is actually very specific.
HSI specifically is very important because they specialize in dealing with human trafficking, human smuggling, counterfeit, bank fraud, things of that nature.
All important stuff. Senator Mullin, though, didn't appear to know what HSI is, what their mission is supposed to be, and what they are doing now. Look, there are a lot of remaining questions about why Markwayne Mullin felt the need to root for the neighbor who beat up Rand Paul and what double super secret mission he may have been on. But what today's hearing made very clear is that he is not prepared for the job of Homeland Security Secretary. So that's one part. That was what was happening in one room at the Capitol. But perhaps more concerning was what was simultaneously taking place in another hearing room with a member of Trump's cabinet who has already been in the job for over a year and still isn't particularly well-versed, it seems, on what her job actually is. Like I said before, today, Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified before the Senate. And that hearing also got off to quite a rocky start when Tulsi Gabbard decided to do some, well, last-minute editing to her opening statement, omitting an entire section of her prepared remarks that contradicted Donald Trump's justification for the war in Iran. And those who were following along in the room, and believe me, many were, certainly took note.
I guess what I'm concerned about, one thing is, even in your printed testimony today on page 6, and your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir. I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions.
So you chose to take
my oral delivered remarks.
You chose to omit the parts that contradict the president.
So Tulsi Gabbard wrote in her prepared remarks that Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated, that they were not trying to rebuild a nuclear weapon. There was no nuclear threat from Iran. But then she just conveniently omitted it from what she said on camera. And she likely did that because her boss keeps saying things like this.
We took a little bit of a journey, a little bit of an excursion over the last 2 weeks because we thought we had to do something about very bad people that want to have nuclear weapons. The regime was trying to reconstitute its weapons program at a different site. If we didn't do what we're doing right now, you would have had a nuclear war and they would have taken out many countries.
So Tulsi Gabbard clearly did not want to contradict her boss during today's hearing. That's very clear. But that proved very difficult as the hearing went on. I mean, she wants to have her job tomorrow after these hearings wrap. I get that. But that's not an easy task because her boss has said a lot of things that are pretty easy to contradict. Like the question of whether or not Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States prior to Trump's decision to start the war. Now, remember, it was just yesterday when a top Gabbard deputy and MAGA diehard resigned from the administration over the war, claiming that contrary to Trump's claims, there was no imminent threat from Iran. And he's now on something of a right-wing media tour, telling the other side of the story, the side that Trump certainly doesn't want people to hear.
there was no intelligence that said, hey, on whatever day it was, March 1st, the Iranians are going to launch this big sneak attack. They're going to do some kind of a 9/11 Pearl Harbor, et cetera. They're going to attack one of our bases. There was none of that intelligence.
That was one of Gabbard's former closest aides until he resigned. There was no intelligence that Iran posed an imminent threat, is what he said. Now watch what happened when Tulsi Gabbard was asked a very similar question today.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations.